this conversation is keenly important at a time when there are question marks on the state of democracy in Africa. Those of you who read the Mo Ibrahim report, the recent one that was released for 2020, in fact, it's entitled The Retreat of Democracy in Africa. So that should be worrying to all of us who have an attachment to ensuring democratic consolidation of democratic governance, that the role of our people remains central in determining what system of governance that they have, that there's accountability on our continent, that our institutions function in a way that benefit the African peoples, that there is more and more opening up of political space and freedoms and liberties, and that ultimately we are also seeing progress, economic and social progress in the lives of people, democratic dividend on our continent. I think it's a moment to probably just take a pause and say, wait a minute, is democracy on the retreat? And if it is, what is it that is causing this slippage in a process that we all are keen to advance? So let me commend CODEO, therefore, for organizing this important event and for the invitation to me, and I want to emphasize the importance of after-action reviews to key processes such as elections, with a view to identifying best practices and improving on future electoral processes. Any human endeavor certainly will have its shortcomings, so it's normal. It doesn't matter how well one thinks that one has performed. Monitoring evaluation requires that we take a look at our performance and see how we can improve on future endeavors, future exercises, future elections. In that regard also, let me recognize the invaluable role of civil society organizations, particularly the CODEO, in the democratic process in Ghana. Through the promotion of peaceful, transparent, and credible elections, or even just contributing to conflict prevention and resolution processes. And I want to urge that this continues to be the case. And in fact, many of the examples that we have established here in Ghana have been replicated in neighboring countries. And I can tell you that from my previous work, whether it was with the ECOWAS or with the UN, that in many countries that we go, we're told that, oh, this we learned from Ghana. So that leadership position that we have in this regard is important. Ghanaian civil society ought to be proud of itself and continue to remain engaged and do the work that you need to do to advance the democratic process here and by implication in our sub-region and on our continent. Over the years, and particularly during the 7th December 2020 elections, the contribution of CODEO in collaboration with other partners was instrumental to the conduct and conclusion of the process. Through the deployment of elections observers and regular analysis and advocacy, CODEO once again demonstrated its central role in promoting democratic governance, peace, and stability in the country. And I should underscore that the information generated by CODEO, including from its well-equipped and professionally manned situation room, was very useful to some of us who were playing good officers' role at the time and who came, and in our interactions we were able to get very useful information indeed. And this will be true of other bilateral and multilateral partners of Ghana who were involved in that process. The 7th December general election was another major test to Ghana's democratic process. And Ghanaians, despite numerous challenges in a very tense atmosphere, once again demonstrated their political maturity and love for country by ensuring a largely peaceful conclusion to the process and avoiding a post-electoral crisis. I should add here that indeed in some of our neighboring countries, we did witness crisis prior to the election, during the election, and post-election, including, for instance, in Guinea and neighboring Cote d'Ivoire, where we had an exceptionally large number of election-related violence, particularly in Guinea and in Cote d'Ivoire. And it is in that regard that we should also be concerned that perhaps in that regard we lost one of our bragging rights. I personally used to always say, when I'm talking in other contexts where things are tense, and say, well, look, I come from a country where when we have elections, yes, we have our differences, and you'll have the tension associated with elections everywhere, but there are never any deaths as a result of these elections. And if they occur, they are accidents that happen from accidents of vehicles or motorcycles, people going to or from party events. But I think this time our image has been tainted in that regard, and it should be of concern to us. One person's life is one person too many to be lost in an election, and that reminds me of former President Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria, who I think today can be proud for all the criticisms that he may have had while he was in office. That one statement that he made, that a single drop of rain in Nigeria is not worth his ambition to be president. I think this is something that should inspire all of us in Ghana to ensure that never again will we see any loss of life from elections. And so let's go back to the good practice in the past, where whatever shortcomings there may be with the process, the one thing that would not happen would be any killings around the electoral process. And while the findings and recommendations of electoral observation missions have been well documented, and I think even in his opening remarks, the acting chair has highlighted some of it, and our friend from the EU has just told us about their observations contained in their book, which I'm told is on sale even here. So, I mean, and the debate is already live. Let me just make one or two of my own general observations here. Building trust in national institutions to implement their constitutional mandate is essential for the consolidation of democracy, peace, and stability. The role played by national institutions in Ghana during the electoral process has been recognized by many. All actors, including civil society organizations, must continue to work closely with these constitutional bodies and statutory bodies, the Electoral Commission, the National Peace Council, National Commission for Civic Education, police and judiciary, the Media Commission. We have an architecture of institutions which have served us well, and which, if they continue their consultative nature and are open to discussions and consultations with civil society and a broad spectrum of Ghanaian public opinion, can only improve in their performance. So I think going forward, it's necessary that this consultative approach is consolidated, and that we all endeavor to work to strengthen these state constitutional institutions that we have established specifically to improve our conduct of our elections, but in general also to deepen our democratic process. Internal conflict prevention and dispute resolution mechanisms remain reliable and effective. Indeed, one can say that we do have a fairly robust peace architecture in Ghana. And this again was demonstrated during the last elections. I cannot overemphasize the role of the National Peace Council, which UNOWAS and ECOWAS in particular collaborated with a number of platforms, and not only here in Accra, but also in some of the regions. Then, of course, we have the role of CODEO itself, of the IDG, for instance, which worked with the Peace Council, traditional and religious leaders, to host the signing ceremony, where we were able to bring the two leading candidates to an event at Movenpick, which contributed in no small way to calming down the atmosphere and lessening tensions, and to demonstrate a strong commitment on the part of the two leading candidates to also contribute their quota towards peaceful elections. And this is something, it's an asset we should cherish. This peace architecture that we have, and the ability to pull on our elders and traditional leaders, religious leaders, active civil society organizations to address these questions. And of course, we have representatives from all of these bodies, and we can hear more from them. What I liked especially was the decentralized institutions, particularly the MPs, the National Peace Council, and the civic education at constituency levels, at district levels, also taking the messages there to talk to grassroots and to appeal to all the stakeholders to be mindful of their conduct in order that we could end up with peaceful and credible elections. Once again, women and youth groups, as well as community-based organizations, demonstrated that they remain key actors to a peaceful electoral process. Through different initiatives, communities were mobilized to promote peaceful elections, and we must endeavor to give them a central role in our electoral process going forward. I mean, we know the youthful profile of our population, the active role of our women, Ghanaian women, particularly when it comes to electoral campaigns. Of course, role of our women, which is not always reflected post-elections in the distribution of the goodies. And I see that in Parliament we don't seem to be improving on that, and the representation is still hovering around 16%. I know that in the past it had gone up to 20%, so it's not a happy story today to say that the gender representation is hovering around 16%. We can do more. The executive is striving, and I've seen a figure of average of 20%, but I think Ghana, with the leadership role that we have in the issues of governance on our continent, we should be among the trendsetters when it comes to this. So I think it's long overdue that at executive level also we should be talking of minimum 30% representation by our female population, which represents more than 50% of the national population. So at 20%, that is an underrepresentation, and I think going forward we should all endeavor to do better there. The commitment to democratic values remains strong in the country. The fact that electoral disputes were settled with the utmost respect for the rule of law is indicative of the high level of political maturity and understanding of the tenets of democracy. This is definitely a lesson to other countries in the region and even beyond, especially with regards to increasing concerns over the decline of democracy in many countries on our continent. And I think that is just one of the attributes of a Ghanaian political elite that must be commended, that we allow the process to run its course, including, of course, the judicial process, which our Constitution has charged with certain responsibilities and given it its clear role. And at the end of the day, even if we do not agree with the reasoning, which is to be expected, which is natural, we accept, because that's the mandate given our judiciary by the Constitution. So I think in that regard, we need to commend our political elite, and indeed civil society has played an important role also in deepening this culture of rule of law. It is not perfect, and there are many areas in which it can be improved. In that regard, let me point out that if you go back to the Mo Ibrahim report that I mentioned, it actually rates Ghana lower at this point than before. So in the category of justice and rule of law, we should be aware that our standing has declined. Given the parameters that the Mo Ibrahim Foundation uses to rate African countries, I think we ought to be conscious of that and maybe interrogate what it is that is causing this decline, because we should be a leader in that category. The other category where we also see a decline is the security and rule of law. So I think in these two areas, perhaps when we come to the focused discussions, we can go into more detail there. Then partnerships underpinned by mutual respect remains key in the electoral process. Collaboration between actors at the national level and regional and international actors is always key to the conduct of electoral processes. During the 7 December elections, the collaboration between national stakeholders and institutions such as ECOWAS, the African Union, the UN, the EU, and the diplomatic community was exemplary and must be appreciated. Such partnerships are key to peaceful, credible, transparent, and inclusive elections. And here I can give you an anecdote where during one of my visits, we met with the partners and we were discussing about support by partners to civil society. And when I heard that the figure of persons to be deployed across the country was around 2,000, I immediately struck me that that was a much reduced number than previous years. So I threw a challenge to the partners and I said, wait a minute, we can do better. I know that in previous years it's been much higher. And yes, perhaps we can say that in Ghana, things are generally improving in terms of conduct of this process, so probably you don't need as many as in the past, but still, I just thought that 2,000 was not good enough and that more could be done. And I was glad after that meeting for one of the partners to tell me that indeed they had decided to support CODEO to increase the numbers. So this kind of constructive and positive partnership is very healthy. I know Ghanaians were very sensitive and we want to be sure that we are left alone to do our thing and we feel that we have capacity to deliver. And so sometimes we might see certain actions as being a bit too intrusive. But that notwithstanding, we are also very open and friendly with our partners, and I think where there's a mutual respect and understanding about each other's role, things can go properly, and we hope that this partnership, we're a member of ECOWAS, we're a member of AU, of the UN. So they have their roles to play. But we have good partnership with EU, USAID, and so many other bilateral partners who we hope going forward will continue to support our electoral processes. A concerted approach will be required to enhance the electoral process in Ghana, with such an event being, such as this retreat that we are having, being a first step. Let me urge the EC, Electoral Commission, and other relevant national institutions to put in place a mechanism for consultation to discuss the findings of the recommendations of this retreat that we're having here today, and to develop a strategy for their implementation. All of this will come to nothing if there is not also the goodwill and the good faith to take the good recommendations that will come out of here and perhaps similar such consultations ongoing, and to make good faith effort to implement them.